Hey, Tim Frisch with a Frisch Perspective here. Last week I did a video at the beginning of the week on the topic of social justice. And then later that day, the George Floyd incident happened and everything kind of exploded and the situation really became tumultuous and has escalated over the last week. And it's been a trying time, and I had no idea when I started talking about that. As I said in that video, I just wanted to dip my toe in the water of the subject of social justice. But lo and behold, we're in the middle of a real crisis right now that is related to the issue of social justice. So I want to continue to talk about that. I did talk about George Floyd a little bit last week, and you know, just such a tragic situation. And there's so much that could be said, and I'm going to be honest with you, I was feeling a little worn out today, so I don't really want to get into too much here, and there's really just so much to take in right now, it's hard to get into it all. But one of the things that I really was thinking about, I was actually discussing it with my daughter, because she was talking to me about how confusing everything is and the different sides and perspectives on situations that are going on right now. And I said, you know, with the riots and everything and just the way people are reacting, it really does speak into the innate human desire for justice that we have. And there's a word in the Bible that really comes to my mind, in more traditional translations at least. You'll see the word propitiation. And I'd like to read one verse that uses that word. It's in 1 John chapter 2. It's talking about Jesus, and it says that he himself is the propitiation for our sins, and not for ours only, but also for the whole world. So there's this idea in the Bible that we need propitiation for sin. And I think we see that even people that don't believe the Bible necessarily or don't know much about it, what is the reaction when we see injustice or when we see sinfulness? There's an anger that's kind of inherent within us. We just have this strong reaction to sinfulness. And so we're seeing that right now, that reaction of anger. I realize that there are layers to it. There are different things that play into it. But when I see anger, I'm just reminded of how natural it is for us as humans to respond to something we perceive as unjust or wrong with anger. And the reality is the Bible actually talks about how that's reflective of something that is higher than us, that God actually has anger towards sin. And when you have God who's angry with sin, and we're all sinners, then the question is how do we deal with that? How do we appease his anger? Because what you see in the unrest right now is people are saying something has to be done. We have to deal with this, and there's anger. How do you appease that anger? That's what propitiation is about. Well, the way that God's anger towards sin is appeased is through the sacrifice of Jesus. He's the propitiation for our sin, it says, but also for the whole world. Jesus came to deal with all of our sin. And I was also thinking about this too, that what an amazing and awesome thing that is to think about right now as our world goes through all this turmoil and all these problems, particularly in the United States right now. And we just had some astronauts the other day that left Earth, and I saw posts online, and people were saying, and it was kind of funny, they were saying the astronauts successfully left Earth. It was a good choice. And what people are saying is it was a good thing, you know, with everything going on right now, to leave the world's problems behind. But you know, I was thinking about that, and it really struck me, and it just impacted me so deeply to think about Jesus being in the form of God in heaven, left all the perfection and all the peace and all the glory of heaven and entered into this world. He came to earth, into our problems, into our mess, to deal with our problems. And that's again what that verse talks about, that Jesus would leave all of that wonderful perfection of glory and come to where we are so that he could deal with the mess that we're in. That is such an amazing thought. Personally, for me, I want to run away from problems. When I think about what people are saying, I agree. I would rather get away from problems. It seems like a good choice to leave problems. And yet Jesus came into our mess, into our turmoil, into the problems that we have. And so as we're facing the social unrest and the turmoil right now that we're going through, I think we need to be reminded, first of all, that yes, of course, we want to run away from these problems, but we have to face them. But two, the answer to the problems is what Jesus provided. And it's so tempting to say, well, we have to solve this problem on our own. And of course, there are things we need to ask God to give us wisdom about, but ultimately, the problem is solved in Jesus Christ. That's why he came to earth, to deal with our problems. So more than anything, I really think we need to be praying. We need to be processing everything that's going on, but we need to process it prayerfully. And that's what I'm seeking to do, and try to keep my eyes on Jesus through everything. And I hope that you will be encouraged to do the same thing. But I would love to hear what you think, and any input that you have as we go through all of this. I know it's a hard time right now, and I will probably continue to talk in certain videos about the issues of social justice and social unrest that we're facing right now. But that's just something I wanted to share with you today. And thank you, as always, for listening to my thoughts from a fresh perspective.